All right, everyone, welcome back to the Gathering Movement. Today, I'm here with Rachel Sims, and we are talking all about how to reawaken your inner power with the energy and spirit of water. If you are new to the Gathering Movement series, this is a global initiative to bring together leaders across all industries. So the healing arts, which is more of our realm, to the financial professionals, to the educators, to fitness professionals, to really help us become the leader of our lives. So thank you, Rachel, for being here.
Oh, thank you, Bridget. Yeah, I'm so excited to have this conversation, and I'm really grateful to be here. So thank you.
Me too. And I always love, we're both from New Jersey, which I think brings us a little bit closer together, even though we've never met.
Exactly. But I always say that's the power of social media. You can use it in two ways. And on the good side, it just connects us in this really beautiful way, where we might not have connected otherwise. So, yeah.
What a blessing. What a blessing. I'm excited today to talk a little bit about water, and I would love to hear first, if we take it back a couple of steps, how did you find yourself doing what you're doing now? How did you get here?
Yeah, my God. I mean, it's been a journey. So I'm 30 right now, and I've been on this for half my life, probably longer, because a lot of the work I do is around conditioning, looking into traumas, and mine stemmed back all the way when I was 3 years old. But I really started this journey because I was chronically sick for 15 years. And it was something where, I started out with a couple symptoms. And I had things like asthma and allergies, some vaginal issues. And it started to build so much that by the time I was 20 years old in college, I always sort of jokingly say I had every symptom in the book. I was basically bedridden, vertigo, migraines, ear pain, body pain, digestive issues, on and on and on. And so it was something where at the beginning of my journey, I was doing a lot of sort of the Western route healing. And it was things where I would go, I went to all these different doctors, and, each doctor would sort of give their own diagnosis of what was going on and give me some kind of pill or cream. And it might have helped temporarily, but I found that as soon as I was off that sort of medication, it came back stronger. And so I really went on this journey of sort of self-healing because, I always say for all types of healing, whatever doctor, whether you're Western or Eastern, you serve a purpose in this world, right? Healing. But the Western route wasn't working for me. And so I went into this sort of Eastern holistic way of healing. And it was the first time I really learned about nutrition and was ever asked about nutrition. And that was when I was 20 years old. So this had already been 8 years of me really struggling and just things building up. And so, I went the whole Eastern route. And again, I was working with some really beautiful healers and Eastern practitioners, but it was a lot of my own self-healing, between seeing doctors, which I wasn't seeing them very often. I really had to go within and listen to myself and be my own sort of doctor, healer in a way. And, so over the years, it then brought me to energy work. And getting into that sort of put me on this path of spiritual healing. And it just totally opened my world and changed everything completely. And so, 15 years later now, this is the work that I'm doing. I've been able to heal myself from basically everything that I was experiencing, which is a really beautiful thing. I don't think I look back as much as I probably should to see where I was. But I know it's been my life's work, and what I meant to do is I was meant to go through sort of those trials and all those challenging experiences to be able to now sort of be an advocate for those who need it.
Wow. Wow. I'm sitting here. I think we are just the most, we are mirrors for each other. Rachel, you and I have had the same experience of why we are doing the work we're doing.
Really? I didn't know that.
I didn't know this about you. And this is what we were talking about before we started. Like, we want to hear people's story. Like, I want to know what you went through.
Yeah.
And when I hear you say that, it's like, oh my God, Rachel, I was going through the same exact thing.
Wow.
That is just profound.
Yeah.
Wow, I know. I'm hearing you say this, being like, wow, wow, wow,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And that's what it is too. Like I find I love sharing and connecting in this way because it really shows us how much more similar we are with others, even strangers. A lot of us have very similar stories, or at least have experienced something that someone else has gone through. So that in itself is really healing. Yeah.
The way that I've always been able to look back on those times of my life was it was really the biggest doorway to everything I had ever learned. For you, what was the first kind of healing modality that you found solace in and found comfort using?
Man, I mean, there's been so many things. Because I had so many symptoms, it's like different things sort of helped me with different symptoms that I was going through. But I mean, just the first thing that's coming to mind is meditation. Like I truly, I've done everything. I was a colon hydrotherapist, did, sort of physical detoxing, and I've done energy work and, again, all these other different modalities. But I really found that when I found meditation and learned about mindfulness, it's something that wasn't easy at first. But I find that even to this day, when I can just remember to take a minute or 5 minutes or 10 minutes, whatever it is, and just quiet everything that's around me and just go within, touch into the heart space and just breathe. That's been the most helpful thing, because you can return to that at any time. And yeah, I think, again, it's not easy all the time. A lot of times I go into it and it can sometimes make things a little bit worse to start. Or I sort of like push through it.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm just like, I know this will help. Just quiet the mind. Yeah, it seems to always help.
I love that. It's so interesting. We have these experiences, these challenges, but they ultimately allow us to find the modalities that work for us. And then in your case, and my case, it allows us to then become the teacher to share this information with others. And I'm going to bet that you wanted to do this work because you wanted to help all those people who were struggling when you were struggling.
Exactly. Like I remember the thing that actually came up recently was this deep, I do a lot of deep healing. So going, like I was saying before, traumas and conditionings and these things that I know are limiting me. And I had this sort of thought come up, something from deep within, of being frustrated and angry and really almost sort of depressive energies that came up around not being believed. And, like all those years, for me, a lot of it I was feeling was inside. So sometimes I would get rashes. It wasn't on my face, it was mostly on my legs and my belly. So when there were days when I was really out of it, like I was in a fog for so many years and I knew it, but I didn't know to the extent of it. But on the outside, no one really knew. Like I was very good at covering it up and, got to a point where I was so angry that I just pushed through it. Like I was just like, I don't want to be different than everyone else. I want to be able to like go to this party or make it to class and seem like I'm okay. Because I had for so many years said, I'm not feeling well. Like this doesn't feel good. and people wouldn't really believe to the extent of what I was feeling, but it was debilitating. Like I said, there were days I was just in bed and couldn't get up, just so exhausted.
My heart is just so with you, because it's like, oh, we were laying there together. That's what it feels like. And I've had a lot of those same stories come up of being different, being ostracized, being not believed very recently too. So maybe this is a little bit in the planets for us lately. How would you say that this whole experience really taught you what inner power was in the first place?
Man, I mean, I've learned that inner power is all about trusting myself. So knowing that even if no one else believed me that was happening, and even if there were parts of me that weren't fully on board with certain things, if I could just learn to really trust myself and really trust also something bigger. Trust that, I've really learned that the universe is here supporting me. And for a long time, I did not believe that. I was like, something out there makes me, like, it's making me this sick, I'm not someone, who was very religious growing up, but I would sort of, like, I remember there were days I would scream in my car and be like, what do you want? I'm really trying and nothing's changing. What do you want? And would just get really, really upset and frustrated. But the more that I, of course, went through the years and really developed my inner strength and learned all these really beautiful healing modalities and found my spiritual path, that's when I really learned to trust. And I'm still working on it. Again, it's not perfect by any means. Every day have moments of being like, is this really the right thing? I still ask for signs sometimes. And even when I get the signs, like they come back, I still sometimes question it. I'm like, is it right? But I think trust is really big for inner power. And I think I also think inner power is all about just persistence. So, not persistence in a way that like you're forcing yourself to move forward, but just every little steady movement you can make going forward, even if that movement is like laying in bed all day, and maybe, I don't know, getting up and making yourself breakfast when you didn't want to do that. I think any step forward is starting to go into that inner power. So it doesn't have to be anything like magnificent, in that kind of sense. But I just think it's all about turning inwards and loving on yourself, even when it's hard.
I love your reminder of it doesn't have to be this big monumental thing in your life. It can be the smallest things that you are doing to take care of yourself, to remember your divinity, to remember your purpose and how special that you truly are. So I really appreciate that answer, and just want to say I hope everyone's loving the dog.
He wants in on the conversation. That's what it is.
I guarantee there's a UPS truck in front of the house right now, and that is what makes him lose it.
Oh, baby.
Never dull, never dull.
Never dull.
Never dull. So I'd love to hear a little bit more about water and what it actually means to you. What is the spirit and energy of water?
Oh my God. I mean, she's been everything this year. So I call her a she. Water's fluid. Water has no gender. But water has been showing up very deeply for my journey this year. And I'll tell you why she's so important. And this sort of spans across a lot of different levels. But basically, in my spiritual work, I've really been fine-tuning my sort of intuitive muscle, right? And the more that I've done that and done my own clearing and healing, the more I've been able to really start connecting to the land and the energies outside of me and different spirits. And, through quarantine, being inside quite a bit, I connected with her. It was a little bit, sort of early on in the year, but she came through really strongly just in June. So I do a lot of sort of ritualistic things around the moon. And I happen to feel called to do a blood moon ceremony. So with my own, moon cycle blood. And I've only done this a few times, but I've always felt called to do it with the land. I have a tree in my backyard that I've connected with very deeply, and so I've done these sort of rituals there. But something called me to do it at a lake near my house. And so, I collected the blood, which, for some people it's sort of like, oh, what are you doing?
I love it.
But it's really powerful. And that's a whole other conversation, about the womb and creation and power in that sense. But so I felt called to take it to this lake near my house. And for 3 days, I did a ceremony, just totally intuitive, and basically released the blood into this lake. And I had sort of written out a list of the things that I was looking to heal and manifest in my life. And it was almost like as soon as I did that, within the week, the things started materializing. And then the water spirit started showing up and sort of showing me that I need to connect deeper with her. And so that was sort of the recent sort of interaction I had with her. But the more I've connected with her, I've realized she's actually been with me for years now. Like I look back at all these milestones that were really prominent for me, and there was always water. There's always water. There's always water. And so why water is so important? And what I've learned is that, for one thing, at our essence, we're actually water beings. So we are so made of water, and it's something that we don't really talk about. Like we don't really look so much into it on a daily basis, or even that much at all. We hear about how we need to drink water. You can't survive more than 3 days without water. But when you look at our bodies as a whole, I think we're 60 to 70% water. But when you take each part of the body, like our blood is 90% water. Our eyes are 90% water. You have different organs that are, higher than that. And so it's not something that we really truly look at. And the reason why this is important as well is going into sort of trauma healing and, the reason why we are the way we are and the reason why we have certain patternings is because water holds memory. And this is a really beautiful thing. You can use it in intention setting and different things like that. But our inner waters are holding all the memories that we've had in this lifetime. And if you believe in past lifetimes, it's held there as well. Generationally, things that have been passed down. All that water is holding all of that. And, so when we can recognize that and recognize that, how much we're not sort of tapping into that, right? Like we do all these sort of releasing exercises and things that help us come more into our power and connect to the earth and move forward in our healing. But to sort of have the visualization of where those memories and things are being held, I found that when you can, recognize that that's where it's being held in the body, when you go and do those sort of exercises, it actually helps to release more because you can sort of visualize where it is. So there's a lot of different reasons why, that's just one or two reasons why the water spirit's so important. Because again, we are these water beings, and so much outside of us is water as well. So this water spirit lives around us as well. And when we can connect to that spirit, water represents flow. So a little bit what we were talking about earlier before we jumped on is flowing with life, like allowing yourself to just move with the waters of where life is taking you instead of being resistant. right? Instead of, trying to force yourself through things. It's sort of like, okay, where is it wanting to flow right now? Water is also receptive. So tapping into the water spirit within you and outside of you helps you to recognize you're allowed to receive. The water spirit actually encourages you to allow yourself to open to receive. Because I think a lot of us don't feel like we deserve to receive. And when I talk about receiving, it's sort of like most of the times it's around love that we have, we struggle with. A lot of us struggle with that. But this water spirit tells us that is the flow of life. And we have to keep that open in order for that cycle to move. So if you're constantly giving and you're not allowing yourself to open to receive, that cycle is really halted. But if you can just keep that open, and I always say, like, how I visualize it is keeping my chest open, my shoulders back, my head high, really keeping the throat and the heart open, and then keep that cycle. That's the water spirit. So I could go on and on. There's so
it's beautiful.
Yeah, it's something that I'm also part of a team called the Wake Water Co. And it's something where we're helping to connect people to this really beautiful healing water. And part of it is that we get a lot of trainings. We learn a lot about water. So we've learned how much people aren't drinking enough water. It's like 75% of Americans are dehydrated. So it's like if you're not hydrating properly, nothing's really functioning properly.
Right.
So again, yeah, I don't want to talk too much.
No, it's
so much around it, but
it's fascinating. And actually, as you were talking about this expansion and expansiveness in your chest and throat, it brought me back to Ayurveda, because Kapha dosha is associated with water and earth. And a lot of the times it's more closed off in this area. They deal with a lot of congestion, heaviness in the lymphatic system. So the balance of Kapha dosha of this water is expression and openness through the heart center and through the throat, because they struggle to speak their voice and speak their truth.
Oh, I didn't know that. Yeah, I know a little bit about Ayurveda, but that's so beautiful. Yeah.
So connected too. I'm like, oh my God. I love it. Yeah. Wow. So how can people connect with the water within them? How can they kind of bring this into their life?
Yeah, I the first thing that's coming to mind is, I talk a lot about this with my clients. Start just, putting one hand on the heart, one on the belly, and go within and just start talking to that inner child. That inner child is held very deeply in those inner waters. And a lot of times we don't, go so much to that space of who we are, who we were all those years ago. We want to just move forward in healing. But it is really important to look back, make sure she's okay, and really hold her in a very sort of nourishing, I always sort of picture like this. And she or he or they live inside of us. And so just by putting the hand on the heart and the belly and sort of starting to talk to that inner the inner waters, and just acknowledging that you're there and you're ready and you're willing to listen, what that's going to do is really help to create that relationship, like a more powerful, strengthened relationship that will allow your inner waters to start flowing and to start almost bringing to the surface that need healing. Because especially if it's something traumatic, sometimes our body and our minds and our spirit likes to hide it. And so if we don't make that connection to our inner self and say, I'm here for you, I love you, I want to help you and nourish you, then sort of opening yourself up in that way might take some more time, and that's okay if it does. But I find that the more that you can connect and just acknowledge that you're really willing to listen and really be there, is when that door, if it was closed, will start to just slowly start to open and really rise to the surface. Yeah, and I found that for my own traumas this year, where, you know, I had things that were repressed, I had no recollection of. This has been the past year and a half. And I found that the more that I did that, the more they started to reveal themselves. And again, it's not always easy to see those things. What I believe is that healing needs to, you know, in order to really heal, we need to go to those places in the right time, right? There's no, you know, not to rush it, but to know that a lot of times our healing is stemming from something that we're not, you know, recognizing ourselves, or has been really repressed down. So the waters can really help.
It's such a journey, all of this work. It's so many layers and levels to it all. And I appreciate even something so simple as bringing the hand on the heart, hand on the belly, because I think maybe for some people, water can feel so outside of them. You know, we don't see that water is so much a part of us. But when you were saying about how our traumas, our emotions, these are imprinted in the water in our body, which makes up who we are.
Yeah.
And I think that makes a lot of sense. So to bring it to the physical level, I always think the first doorway for so many is the physical.
Yeah.
And then they begin to, you know, venture deeper, and they can start to, you know, feel where the traumas are in their body. And I just love your way of sharing this information. It feels very whole. I just love it.
Thank you, Bridget. Yeah, it's coming really full circle. I think that's the beautiful thing, is I'm sort of in a place where I'm seeing how connected everything is, you know, and you know, water is a really big connector for that. There's so much more I could go into about it. But it just helps you to see through a different lens. The more that you sort of connect to this spirit, it helps you to see how much we're connected, and just to sort of surrender to the flow of life. And again, of course, it helps us in moving forward. But again, when you can look back, you can see how much that spirit has been with us, and you can sort of see how certain things happened, you know, because it led to this, or you met that person because it led to that. You know, it's all so connected. So it's really beautiful.
So if people would love to learn more about this, learn more about your healing work, learn how they can connect with you, how can they do that?
Yeah, so I'm primarily on Instagram. That's where I post, you know, I try to post something every day. So my Instagram is at Rachel Sims Healing. My website as well is where you can find a lot of information. So that's rachelsimshealing.com. Yeah, and I also have a newsletter. So if anyone's interested, you can email me, rachelsimsenergy@gmail.com. And I sent out a newsletter once a week at least, just with events. And, you know, I do some, I have been doing recently sort of channeled messages that come through. So I've been working with sort of the Akashic records and that kind of thing. So I always sort of sit down and say, okay, what do we need to know this week? What's coming through? Yeah. And so that's primarily where you guys can find me. And I talk all things energy healing, and of course about the spirit of the water, and yeah, it's a beautiful space. So thank you.
Amazing. Anything else that you feel someone listening needs to hear in this moment?
Yeah, it sort of came up immediately. Turn your love inwards. I think around this time, and this came up really prominently around Thanksgiving, where we give thanks and we give a lot outwards. Turn that inwards and give that to yourself, because a lot of times we're our harshest critic. We're very judgmental of ourselves, and everything opens up when you just give yourself that love. So really turn that inwards, and you'll find that you can even, whatever you're giving out, you'll be able to give more because you're nourishing yourself. So.
I love it. So beautiful. I feel blessed to have received and been able to just conversate and spend time and share space with you today. This has been so special.
Yeah, thank you, Bridget. Yeah, and thank you everyone for listening. It's such a blessing. Thank you.
Truly, truly. Oh, Janie says, thank you for the self-love reminder.
You're so welcome. We all need it.
We all need it.
We all need it.
We all need it. So thank you so much for being here. Thank you for sharing your story. Thank you for sharing your healing journey and really how you've been able to give back and inspire others to do the same by connecting with the water spirit. I love it.
Thank you, Bridget.
You're so welcome. And if anyone listening knows someone who would love to be interviewed for the Gathering Movement, I really want to bring this to more people, to more homes, to people who don't even know about these healing modalities, who just need a little reminder of their divinity and their power. You can tag them below. So thank you, everyone. Thank you, Rachel. And I hope everyone has the most beautiful weekend.
Yeah. Thanks, guys.